Welcome back to All About Design. When we think about interior design, we often focus on furniture, colour palettes, lighting, and layout. But there's one element that has the power to completely transform a room, and that's art. Artwork can bring emotion into a space, create a focal point, and sometimes even become the starting point for an entire interior scheme. In today's episode, we're talking about the relationship between art and interiors and why choosing the right artwork can be just as important as choosing the right sofa or paint colour. I'm joined by artist Sara Huxley to explore how art lives within our homes, how designers and artists can collaborate, and what actually happens behind the scenes when someone commissions a piece of artwork. We'll also be discussing how art can inspire a design scheme, why original work can bring a deeper sense of personality to a room, and how anyone, whether they're working with a designer or not, can feel more confident about bringing art into their home. Whether you're an interior designer, an art lover, or someone who's always wondered how to start collecting or commissioning artwork, this episode is full of inspiration. Thanks so much for joining me for the podcast. Do you remember the moment that you realised you wanted to pursue art seriously?
Well, I think it was even at school, I was good at art. And I think when you're good at a subject, you enjoy it more and you just take part in it more. And I remember things like they'd asked me to decorate the Christmas tree.
Mm.
And so it was always, I quite like being good at art because I get to do nice other jobs at school. And then I went to sixth form and I did art at sixth form and then a foundation course and then a degree. So it's always been there, really.
And what first drew you to still life and mixed media as your artistic language? Because we've got some of your beautiful artworks behind us. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, really sorry, but you can check out her artwork online. They're absolutely gorgeous, very colourful. You use mixed media and collage and things like that in your artwork.
I do. I think it's because I did a fine art textiles degree. So everything was very much about texture and colour and pattern. And I think I've always loved quite textural, colourful art. I love colour.
Yeah.
So for me, making paintings had to involve some form of texture. I didn't necessarily want it just to be a flat canvas.
Yeah.
And I worked a lot with embroidery when I was younger. So I did a lot of mixing paint and embroidery and even embroidering onto canvas. So to get all those textures in, that's where it came from, really. And the food aspect, I think it's just that I like fine dining. I like going to nice hotels, nice
Yeah.
restaurants. I suppose food is art in itself.
Mm.
A lot of times I love the shapes of food, the colours, the textures, let alone the taste. I like social events. I'm a very social person.
Yeah.
So the idea that you might have a table full of friends and beautiful glasses and cutlery I love.
Mm.
One of the things I seem to keep collecting is cutlery because it's like trying to get the perfect fork and the perfect shape. I think I'm just drawn to all those sorts of occasions
Yeah.
and I want to represent them in my art.
They look amazing. I've seen on your art the lovely different shapes and how they all contrast. Are there any particular artists, designers or places that have influenced your style?
Lots of artists through the years, right back to, doing my degree or foundation, you discover people like Matisse and so on, and obviously Picasso and people that you love, through to William Scott, who does a lot of still life. I really like his work. I like the way it's quite minimalist but still textural.
And I know you also taught art for many years. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. Well, of course, the thing is, when you've got an art degree, you come out of it and you think, oh, I don't know what to do now. So I started teaching on foundation course and I loved it. I realised I loved teaching.
Yeah.
I liked interacting with people. I liked helping them. So I thought, I'll go and do a teaching course, a PGCE. And a lot of my friends at the time had gone and done their degree in Manchester. And I was going up to Manchester for really great studenty weekends. And I thought, I'll go to Manchester. It's a great excuse to go and do a PGCE and go and live in Manchester for a year.
Oh, wonderful.
And then I stayed there for a bit longer.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's what started me off teaching. And then I just realised that I liked it, really.
Were you still painting yourself at the same time? Or?
I was, but of course life has a way of making it quite difficult, throwing you a curveball every so often.
Yeah.
So I was painting and teaching, which was fine. And then I got married and then I had children. And then, of course, when you've got children, you take a bit of time off from your career And I thought, oh, I know, I'll have a baby and I'll be able to paint more. Of course, it doesn't work like that
No.
at all. So I had a baby and then I had another one and realised I could paint less, but I still kept going. In
Yeah.
fact, my daughter, when she came out of hospital, when I just had her, her first outing was to a private view for an exhibition that I was in. So
Oh.
that's quite sweet. And now she's a painter. So
Yeah, she's an incredible artist as
she
well.
is.
So
Yeah,
we can ask you a bit more about her later, but I've seen
lovely.
some of her pictures and you can see the talent. Must admit, I do love and appreciate art, but I don't know that much about it. And I think that if you go to an art gallery, sometimes they can feel a little bit highbrow, or you feel a little bit out of your depth. But actually, if you connect to a piece of
Yes.
art, that's all you really need, isn't it? I think.
Absolutely. And I think with galleries, I think never be put off by them, never feel that you shouldn't be there,
Mm,
because everybody should go to galleries. Everybody should be able to view art and enjoy it. And the only thing that matters is what you get from looking at a painting
mm,
or a sculpture or whatever it happens to be.
yeah.
It's entirely up to you. You like it, you don't like it, you find this interesting.
If we talk more about the relationship between art and interior design, maybe you'll agree with me, but I often feel that it's the forgotten part of a room. It's like, oh, we'll find a bit of artwork and chuck it in at the end. I've been lucky enough when I used to work in hotel design, it was very much more of a considered part of the overall puzzle. I think quite often in residential interior design, it is the last thing that goes in. I often say to my clients, do you have anything that means something to you artwork wise to put into the space? Do you think artwork changes the feeling of a room?
I do. And I think artwork, when it's commissioned for a particular space,
Yeah.
can really, really add to the whole feel of the place. There are two ways of looking at art. Some art is highbrow art, very collectible art, which is saying something entirely different. And then there is art that perhaps artists just like making a painting
Mm.
for whatever reason, and someone will
Yeah.
want to buy it and put it up in their house and enjoy it, and it will enhance whatever they're feeling in that room, whether it's the colours or they might
Mm.
want to keep looking at it and find something different in it every time.
So when someone's designing a space, do you think should the artwork come first or the room itself, or is it just how it
I think
happens?
that's probably entirely up to the person that's designing the space. If they really love art, then the painting will probably come first
Yeah.
and the room might be designed around it. I go into a lot of houses and I'm really surprised, or you see them online and they're all very neutral and quite tasteful and beautiful, but they're so neutral, you could almost be looking at black and white photograph. And
Mm.
very often those houses don't have paintings in
No.
because that's not the feel that that person wants. I guess they want it very minimalist and very clean. But for me, as you can probably tell, I
Yeah.
think a room isn't complete unless it's got quite a lot of colour in it. Subtle colours, well
Yeah.
chosen colours, but I think colour really adds warmth to a
Yeah.
room and really sets the atmosphere.
And shows personality. And I think some people won't embrace that opportunity as much as they should because they're nervous about getting it wrong
Probably,
sometimes.
yeah,
If you want to start having some artwork in your home, then you'll just carry on and carry on because it does
yeah,
give you so much back. I'm looking at one of your artworks now and it's just gorgeous. The interplay of like you've got the lime against a teal against a yellow. The colours are just really, every time you look at it, you will see something different in there.
yes.
It's quite exciting. It's not just, I'm put it up and don't ever look at it again.
I have noticed that when somebody does suddenly buy a painting, for whatever reason, they're struck by it, they want it, they buy a painting, not necessarily one of mine, but any painting, they will often then start to buy more paintings. And I think
Mm,
perhaps they don't realise what it can add to their life and
yeah.
their room. And then once they do it, they want to keep doing it. And they realise that
Mm.
actually it's a lovely thing to have in your home.
And it's also an investment. We'll go into that later a bit more. But if you do start commissioning or investing in pieces, it's a collection and then it's
Yeah,
going to probably add value or be something that you can
yeah.
pass on that's a personal part of you that you've carefully selected. So when you're painting, do you ever create pieces with particular interiors or spaces in mind?
Yes, I do. I do particularly like painting food
Yeah.
and dining occasions, social occasions, and so on, tables and still life. And so I think that is particularly suitable for dining rooms, kitchens,
Mm,
that type of space, really. But I've also painted flowers because
mm,
I like floral stuff. I try to make it semi-abstract.
mm,
And often when I go on holiday, and I've taken lovely photographs of boats or all sorts of things, I'll
mm.
then want to reproduce that in my
Yeah.
style.
Yeah.
So I'll do a lot of seascapes and
Yeah.
even Cornish villages with boats in and
Mm.
harbours and that sort of thing. Again, in my style, which I would describe as semi-abstract.
What mistakes do you think people sometimes make when placing art in their homes?
Well, I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, you can have a really lovely fancy wallpaper which you just
Mm.
fall in love with, and then you realise, but I want to put some paintings up. So you put the paintings up and it sort of clashes a little bit
Yeah.
with the wallpaper. You can get around that by having a nice chunky frame, perhaps in white. And I think also people can often put a painting up that they love, but it might be too dark an area,
Mm.
might be too light an area. Never put a painting above a fireplace. And also, the colour that they've got on the wall might completely clash with the painting.
Mm.
So it would be quite nice if you are in love with a particular painting and you want to put it up in your room, I would suggest that you think carefully about the colour of the wall behind it.
That's a really good answer because, yeah, we don't think about that enough. And I do
No.
agree, if you've got a really heavily patterned or wallpaper to put art on it, it will get lost.
Yeah, it can be a
Because,
bit too busy, can't it?
like you say, if you put a lot of white around the art and then a bit of separation
Yes,
between the pattern of the wall and your art.
yes. A bit of a boundary.
Colour is such a defining element of your work. Why is colour so important to you?
Well, I think it just adds warmth and happiness. I think, this is my personal opinion, colour, I think, brings happiness. I think you see it in nature. Nature is very colourful. And I don't want to live in a black and white and beige or a grey house.
No.
I want to live somewhere where the colours make me feel all warm and cosy. Although I will tell you a story about this little piano room. I love reds, love deep, warm room, making it cosy and so
Yeah.
on, particularly for a small room. And then I painted the other half of the room in a yellow, which I thought was lovely. And then my daughter came home before all the furniture was in and said, "Oh my goodness, Mum, you made it look a bit like McDonald's."
Oh, my
So
goodness.
I had to change the yellow to a much softer yellow. You won't see that side of the room, but it's now a very subtle tone.
Yeah. No, it does look beautiful together. So not at all like a McDonald's,
Thank
but
you.
yeah.
It's quite sunny, but
Yes.
this being a soft yellow, it adds warmth.
How do you approach building a colour palette in a piece? Or is it just naturally there because it's what you're painting?
Sometimes it's completely random and I just see what happens and what colours I feel like adding. And then other times I might, for instance, look in the garden and see some beautiful colours together. I mean, I particularly love things like green and blue,
Mm.
which I know it used to be an old saying, blue
Yeah.
and green
Should
never
never
seen
seen.
or something.
Yeah.
But I love blues and greens together because nature does it. I think it's quite a natural colour combination.
Mm.
Or sometimes I'll try and do a painting that is quite neutral, quite soft, soothing tones. But then I feel I always have to have a bit of red in there somehow.
Yeah.
So I usually sneak a little red dot in or something. It just pops and brings it to life
Yeah.
for me.
With mixed media and texture, how do you know when a piece is finished? Because sometimes it's quite hard to stop, isn't it?
It's impossible, and I never know.
Ah.
And I went to my framers this week and I took him 2 paintings and he said, "Oh, I thought you were bringing 4." And I said, "Well, I was, but I don't know if the other 2 are finished yet."
Oh, okay.
And it just goes on like that. And then occasionally I'll take them to be framed or scanned or whatever. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, I'll take the same painting again because I've got it home,
Yeah.
decided it wasn't finished, changed it again and had to take it back. I think it's the age-old artist problem. You never know when it's finished. You try and try and try. And I'm always saying to my daughter, "Is it finished?" To my husband, "Is it finished?" And they'll say, "I think so." And I don't think it is, not quite.
So you keep going back and looking at it over a few days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even weeks. And then you get to the point where you think, "Oh, I've overdone it now."
So then you can't take it back,
No.
really, no, can you?
Damn, I've ruined that one.
Oh. So, finding art, do you think it's important for people to feel a personal connection to the artwork they buy?
I really think that's important. I think you should only buy art if you absolutely love it. I mean, there is a case for perhaps buying prints that are much cheaper that you put up on the wall because it adds to the colour scheme of the room. Hopefully you will like the subject of whatever the print is. But I think if you're going to buy paintings, you should buy a painting because you love it for whatever
Mm.
reason. Even if it doesn't fit in with your home, your colour scheme, I'm sure you can find somewhere for it. I've always remembered a painting I saw when I was about 20
Mm.
in a gallery in Cornwall that I absolutely loved, and I couldn't afford it, so I didn't buy it. And to this day, I still remember that painting. Still think, oh, I wish I'd bought that painting. So
Yeah. I used to be cabin crew for British Airways, and I was in Venice Beach in California, and I saw this huge piece of artwork, and I had to have it. And I was,
oh,
how on
great.
earth am I going to get this home? It's about 1 meter by 1 meter.
Oh, wow.
But because I was cabin crew, I was able to get it in the baggage hold somehow. Luckily, it was very lightweight, but I agree with you. I would have been haunted forever if I hadn't been able to bring that
Yes.
home. And I've still got it now,
Well, that's
about
lovely.
30
Yeah.
years later.
Yeah.
So,
Fabulous.
what should people look for when they're choosing art for their home then?
I think look for a piece that you do love for whatever reason. Maybe it's a place that has particular memories for you. It could be anything that resonates with
Yeah.
you, that means something to you, because I think you'll never regret buying that.
And how can someone go out and discover artists or pieces that resonate with them? What's the best way of finding something for
I
them?
would say go to galleries. There's different types of galleries. There are the large galleries like the Tates and so on, the
Mm.
National Gallery. Super. Go and have a look round, see what you like. Go to selling galleries, shops basically that are selling
Mm.
art. And see the artists that they've got in there, because they're more likely to have local artists, maybe earlier career artists, or well-established artists that have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
And obviously they'll be a bit more affordable depending on the type of gallery that you go to. Degree shows are a great way of finding and buying art, because you can go to an art degree show and find very early career artists.
Yeah.
And then the gamble is, are they going to continue and hopefully become more famous and their work will go up in price, or not?
But you've still got a piece you love.
You've got a piece you
anyway.
love. But that's quite a good way if you ever want to start collecting. I've got pieces that I've bought from degree shows that some of them are going up in value and some aren't, but I love them anyway.
As an artist, it must be so thrilling when you first are either commissioned or you sell your paintings to a gallery or they're exhibited for you, and then you sell your very first one to somebody. How does that feel?
It is lovely. And I started having exhibitions and selling through galleries quite a long time ago, probably about 30 years ago. And it's lovely when a gallery, I had a sort of 2 or 3 month show, probably about 25 years ago. I think I'd just had my daughter. And that was very nice, suddenly having to get all those paintings together for that show and having quite a little baby as well. It was
Yes.
quite nice to go to. And yeah, it's a lovely feeling.
Such an accomplishment.
Selling
Right.
is lovely because then it sort of validates what you're doing, I suppose.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And also, it wouldn't be a business if you didn't sell.
So we're just going to talk a little bit about commissioning artwork, because it sounds like something super fancy. But if someone actually wanted to commission a piece from you, for example, how does that process usually work?
Well, almost always commissions come through galleries that I sell through.
Okay.
Occasionally, someone will find me and commission something. It's really interesting. The commissions that have come through, I suppose, word of mouth and recommendation, have been quite unusual things. Like I once did a huge embroidery. I think it was about 2 meters by 2 meters. It was lovely. I really enjoyed doing it. I literally had to spread it out in an entire room and work on it in sections in my little sewing machine. So that was quite an interesting commission. And that was for a church. But mostly commissions are going to be paintings for someone that is building or doing up a house or whatever. I recently had a nice one for a pool room, and they'd got all sorts of sculptures around their swimming pool, which they wanted reflected in the painting. So that was quite an interesting commission. And I had another commission recently, I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning this, where first of all I was thinking, crikey, how am I going to possibly combine these two very different strands of someone's life? It was his brown horse and his sports cars. But I did it and I really enjoyed doing it. It was quite lovely to abstract it and sort of close up bits. And anyway, he's told me he was very pleased with it. So
How much input does the client typically have in the composition and the colour and the subject? Or is it very informal brief and then you're allowed to take the lead?
It's a bit of both. It depends on the client. Sometimes I think the client has an idea
Mm.
in their head and they try to get it across to you, and then you as an artist are trying your best to imagine what that idea is. It's really difficult
Mm.
because you never really know. Even if I explain something to you really carefully, you don't really know what's in my head.
No.
So if the client is too prescriptive, that can be quite difficult to interpret.
Mm.
On the other hand, the guy that I was telling you about that had wanted his horse and cars in the painting, he was so lovely because he just said, "Whatever you do, I'm going to like it." And he did. And then I think sometimes when you've got that free rein, it's much easier
Mm.
because you're not trying to work out what they want. You're just working in your style.
Yeah.
And hopefully they've seen your style, which is why they've commissioned you. Out of all the paintings I make, I probably only maybe 2/3, if I'm lucky, make it into
Ah,
galleries.
okay.
And another third at least I just don't like. So I keep painting over it and painting over it. Sometimes I can paint over the same painting for years before it actually gets to a stage where I like it and I think, okay, yeah, I think that's finished now. I think that can go out into a gallery.
So what advice would you give someone who's never commissioned art before?
If they are commissioning it for a particular room, try and work out what it is that they really want, what they want that piece to say in the room. Do they want it to reflect the purpose of the room,
Mm.
or do they want it to reflect a memory of theirs or something like that? So that's what I think they need to think about. And then they need to think about the colours that they might want in it and the
Yeah.
scale.
The media you work in, is it acrylics or is it oils?
We call it mixed media
Mm.
because it's mainly acrylic paint with collage, which I make myself by printing newspaper and so on.
Mm.
Oil pastels I love, oil bars, which are a lovely way to draw onto acrylic paint with oil paint.
Mm.
Inks I'll sometimes put in there, graphite stick I love, all sorts of things like
Bits of
that.
everything. Yeah.
Anything that
Yeah.
I find that I think I want to use on that painting, I'll use.
And what's the biggest painting you've ever done?
Probably the commission that I've just said about, which
Mm.
was the horse and cars. I think that was something like 160 by 160 centimetres. So it's really, it literally only just fitted in my studio on the wall.
Gosh, oh my goodness.
And then we had to hire a van to get it there.
Oh my goodness. So for someone starting an art collection, where should they begin?
Well, they could go to student degree shows. They could go to smaller galleries that have interesting artists that they might like,
Mm.
but especially things like the large art fairs, like the affordable art fair. Absolutely brilliant
Mm.
because you've got 100 galleries there
Yeah.
showing 6 to 10 of their favourite artists, their best
Mhm.
artists. You've got such a lot of choice. So you go for one day and you might see, 1,000+ paintings.
Oh,
Great idea.
Yeah. Does collecting art need to be expensive?
No.
No.
Some of my favourite pieces that I've ever bought have been from foundation art shows where I might have paid £10 or £20 for something, some little sculpture or a tiny painting.
Mm.
And I've still got them and I still like them and they're still up.
Is it very easy to see and very quick to see when someone's got a real talent, or does it really evolve over time, do you think?
It can evolve over time.
Yeah.
It can, but often it is quite evident quite quickly.
Mm.
So, and there's also an artist's mind. And I think sometimes it's not necessarily about being brilliant at drawing
Mm.
or anything like that. It's about the way you think about things and what you're wanting to explore and how you're wanting to express that.
What do seasoned collectors tend to do differently from first-time buyers?
I think season collectors, they're generally more interested in buying artwork that will go up in value. It's an investment. And so they're probably more interested in seeking out early career artists because obviously that's where you're going to get the bargains, buy a lot of their degree work,
Mm.
hold on to it 20 years later.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the price will have shot
Yeah.
up. So
Yeah.
that's often what they do. Whereas I think most people will buy art because they like it and they want it to adorn their walls.
Yeah, so it's an emotional
Yeah,
investment.
an emotional response rather than a financial gamble.
But you really hope that it will go out financially
Well,
as well.
yes.
I mean, I think artwork, as you said earlier, it can be such an afterthought. And actually, it is lovely if you can think about it as the focal point of your space, find something special. And and if it's invested in a young artist and starts them on their path, that must be a lovely
Be
feeling.
lovely, yeah.
And do you know where your artwork's ended up around the world? Do you find out?
Sometimes I recently shipped a piece to South Carolina.
Yeah.
Montpellier Gallery in Stratford, I think, has sold a couple of my pieces that have gone to America. There was a gallery I used to sell through in Broadway right at the beginning of my career, really. So we're talking about probably 30 years ago. And at some point during that journey, there was a guy, I think he became something like the energy advisor to Obama, but he had a weekend or holiday home in the Cotswolds.
Yeah.
And I think he bought 2 or 3 of my paintings from that gallery back then for the Cotswold home. So it's quite interesting.
So you could be away somewhere yourself and suddenly see one of your artworks.
Well, occasionally I've had people send me a photo saying, "Is this one of yours?"
Oh.
It'll be some restaurant somewhere or even somebody's house occasionally.
As the years go forward, do you see your artwork evolving, or do you have an idea where it's going to go? Or
I never have an idea of where it's going to go, but it evolves all the time. Even paintings I was doing 2 years ago, what I'm doing now, although it's recognisably a Huxley, it's my style, it still changes all the time. And it sounds ridiculous, but I don't even have any control over it. I don't know why it changes. I don't know how. I think I'm just going to go and paint a similar painting in a similar style, but different. And then it just changes. So
Wow.
I don't know why that happens. And sometimes when I'm feeling particularly jolly, they're a lot brighter. And sometimes if I'm worrying about something, they do go a bit dark.
Yeah. Well,
It sounds like a joke, doesn't it? That I seem to use darker colours.
You need more of your red dot in there. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I often find I'm dressing in the colours of the colour scheme I'm putting together that day. So I'm sort of channeling the colour.
Lovely.
And I've done it so often and unconsciously, I thought. Maybe it's not so unconscious. And your daughter, so you must be so proud. I suppose you hope that your daughter's going to have talent when you early on see her doing her paintings, but she's gone on to do incredible work.
She has, yeah. And my son. Neither of them wanted to do art, and I made them do art.
Really?
Actually, it genuinely was a bit like that. Choosing GCSEs, they were, I don't know if I'll do art.
Yeah.
I said, no, you're really good at art. You've got to do it. And they were both really good at art.
Yeah.
And my daughter went on to the Slade School of Art and has become a painter in London. And my son went to Brighton and did game design, and he's now working in a Swedish game design company based in Brighton.
Yeah.
So
very, very creative.
Yeah, both doing what they're good at and what they wanted to do.
And what they love, hopefully.
Yes.
I'd keep saying to my children, do something that feels like you're doing your hobby.
Then you never work a day in your life.
No. If someone is nervous about buying their first piece of art, what would you say to encourage them?
I would say take the plunge. I would say that, wouldn't I? But it's true. I do think art can give you such a lot for such a long time. And even the big painting behind there is a family hand-me-down. And it's a beautiful painting of cows at twilight. I love that painting. So if you have a painting that you genuinely love, first of all, it will give you pleasure. And secondly, hopefully, you can pass it down the family. It may become an investment, or it might just become one of those very sentimental pieces that you never really want to let go of because mum bought it or gran bought it or whatever.
My mum's got some pieces that were my grandmother's, and I can still visualize them in her apartment from when I was 4 or 5 years old. It's just strong emotion attached to them. I can remember them so much more than I can remember a million other things. So it really does have that effect on you.
They resonate. Don't they?
I would never ever, get rid of them.
No.
You're right. And it's nice to pass them on to people that you care about. A lot of your work is obviously on canvases, but as we mentioned earlier, you can frame things like that. What do you
tray frame, they call it.
A tray frame that has a shadow gap around.
It's a very contemporary way. If you go to somewhere like the Affordable Art Fair, I'd say 90% of the paintings there are in tray frames, if they're framed at all. So I think it does. It's quite a clean line. I think a lot of fancier frames have gone out of fashion, I think, because people are wanting cleaner lines around their home or around their paintings. That works very well
Yeah.
because it gives it a bit of an edge. I think it makes it look a little bit more finished and perhaps professional.
I bought something, it was quite large, and then I found someone to do that tray frame for me, and it completely elevated it. And so many people comment on it now.
Yeah.
Very abstract. I had
Sounds
every
lovely.
colour under the sun in.
Yeah.
So then it completely fitted into the colour scheme I was working on. So there are some other ways of bringing art into the home that I know you've done, and I've just seen it's incredible.
Well, I'm gradually doing the house up, and the downstairs loo I always think is the room you can have a bit of fun with.
Yeah.
Because you're not in there for very long, so it doesn't matter really what you do. And I had various ideas for it, and then eventually I thought I would paint on the walls. So instead of painting on a canvas, I
Yeah.
painted all the walls of the loo, and I just started with the masking tape going at all different angles, literally made it up as I went along, and started using all kinds of different colours. So it went from a really subtle, probably well-planned room to an absolutely mad room where if you go in it, you feel like you're drunk.
Well, it looks amazing. And
Thank
so
you.
it is an art installation.
It is really, yeah.
And you have murals on walls which are painted there for
Yeah.
forever. Going back thousands of
Yes.
years, people have done that. So I think it's actually another way of getting colour and art into your home.
Anyone could do it. It's just masking tape. Just measure it out or stick
Yeah.
it wherever you want and paint in between. So
But yours is exceptionally neat, and the colours are beautiful. You're playing it down there. Colour should be in your life. I think it just makes you so happy. It's your home. Do what you want. If you talked earlier about how using certain colours makes you feel happier, but are there some days you just don't want to go and paint? Do you go into your studio every day?
I do go into the studio every day or as often as I can.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go in and I think, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do today. I'm not in the mood. It's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
And then I'll put a canvas on the wall and start painting it. And sometimes it is horrible.
Yeah.
And sometimes by lunchtime, it's like, oh, I don't want to stop now.
Yeah.
And then my husband will come home and he'll say, you're coming in for dinner. Oh, I'll just another 10 minutes. And then 2 hours later, it'll be, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And it's like, oh, damn, I've got to stop.
So it gets addictive at times.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And then other times you think, oh, horrible. I hate what I'm doing. I'll leave it and come back tomorrow.
So it's very emotional.
Yes, it is really.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult. I also spend a lot of time, this is going to sound ridiculous, but sitting opposite my painting, just looking at it. Because sometimes you just don't know quite what to do next, where you're going with it. And you need to really take a break and have a cup of tea, have a look at a photograph of it, and then you can often see more clearly what it needs and where.
That's interesting that you look at a photograph. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it helps, but it does.
I find the same when I'm putting a scheme together or sourcing furniture, and you suddenly, it's like a piece of the jigsaw, and it can take hours and hours, and you're getting really frustrated with yourself. You think, I'm nearly there, but I'm not happy with it.
Very similar process.
Yeah, it is. And if people want to see your artwork for themselves, where's the best place?
Well, I have an Instagram account that is Sara Huxley Art. So Sara, Sara Huxley.art. And I sell through galleries. So here in Stratford, it's Montpellier Gallery. There is Green Stage Gallery in Worcestershire, and they do the really big art fairs, the affordable art fairs, and the international affordable art fairs, and so on. There is Cotswold Art in Broadway.
That's beautiful.
And it is, and the Spencer House Gallery, who are online and do pop-up exhibitions.
That's great. Thank you. So I've put many of Sarah's artworks on the video that will be available on YouTube eventually, or if you watch your podcast. But I have to say, your artworks, they're really joyous, and I'd encourage listeners to take a look. And I know your artwork is becoming extremely collectible now. I have my eye on a few pieces, I must say. It's been fantastic to chat through the world of artwork today, so thank you so much for joining us. And I've put all of Sarah's details on the show notes as well. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of All About Design. So see you then.